You're listening to The Hustle with Russell Scott.
Jason Miller, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
For the audience who doesn't know who you are, tell me about yourself.
I am a writer and teacher and longtime practitioner of what, for lack of a better word, is sorcery, or, the occult arts, magic, witchcraft, that kind of thing. Been doing this for almost my whole life, really, but, intensely studying for about 20 years and writing and teaching professionally for about 10 years. Put out Protection and Reversal Magick, which was my first book, and The Sorcerer's Secrets, followed by the Strategic Sorcery year-long training course, which is an online thing. And now, most recently, I am tackling financial issues, so financial sorcery.
So are you a warlock, or you're a sorcerer?
Well,
is this a ticketed position?
I don't get too hung up on labels. Actually, I have Wiccan initiation, but believe it or not, my main root tradition of magic is actually Tibetan Buddhism. I used to live in Nepal. I have spent the most time learning that magical tradition, but I'm also involved in Christian Gnosticism and the magical traditions that are associated with that, and pretty much go anywhere, because the underpinnings of magic and spirituality are really the same the world over. So when you get to see how something works one place and something works another place, you can kind of see the important things that run underneath all the differences and symbols that people argue over.
Well, what is magic? Is it good?
Well,
is it evil?
Magic, it's really more like electricity. Is electricity good or evil? Well, it depends on what you're using it for, I suppose. If you're using it to, kill people, then it's evil. But if you're using it to power a hospital, then I think most people would agree it's good. So magic is the same thing. Magic is the use of forces that most of the world doesn't acknowledge as real, for causing change. And, there are some out there who want to paint magic as something evil, even though usually they also do magic. Catholics do magic. Everybody does magic. They just call it religion when it's theirs, and they call it magic when it's somebody else's. But people want to paint it as something bad if they're of a particular bent, and then sometimes people in the community want to present it as all goodness and sweetness and light, and no one would ever harm a fly. And unfortunately, that's not true either. Magic can and does get used for positive and negative ends, altruistic and selfish ends, and most of the time just neutral ends. Something that's good for somebody is probably not good for somebody else. There's an article in Mombasa newspaper, or online newspaper this week, about spotting sorcerers at work. And these are how to spot signs that they might have been using juju or something to get promoted. And of course, they're writing it from the perspective of, well, I didn't get promoted because this person used witchcraft, so it feels like a curse.
It's ridiculous.
But that person was really just using yet another tool to get promoted. Some people, are related to somebody. Some people know somebody. Some people are just damn good looking. And all of those are, little advantages that they put to their use. Magic is just another one of those.
How many people are applying for the average job now in the States? Is 50?
Oh, God. I think last I checked, it was 600 people applying for every professional job in the United States. My friend Gordon, who writes the Rune Suit blog from England, he thought I was exaggerating.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous.
It does, doesn't it?
Completely, yeah.
But he showed up at in New York a few months ago at a bar that had one bartending position open, and they had open audition. and people were absolutely, he said, the place was filled past occupancy, and people were waiting in the street in the middle of the day to audition for this one bartender position in New York. And it's crazy, but that is the number that the unemployment office here in New Jersey gave me when I asked.
Your book, Financial Sorcery, I have it here. I've read most of it. It's a great book. I really enjoyed your first chapter on perspective, and I'd like you to talk about that.
Well, before you can make any kind of change, you have to have a real good idea of where you are. And where you are, not just in relation to yourself, but where you are in relation to the world. So one of the things that I often do at my classes, I did it at a class last night in New York City. I asked, raise your hand if you consider yourself rich or wealthy. So here we are in New York City, and everybody that attended the class lived in New York City, and no one raised their hand. So I had said, well, let's just put this into perspective for you. If you make over $44,000 a year, you're in the top 1% income earner on planet Earth. And a few people seemed absolutely shocked. And I said, yeah. I said, so, we have Occupy Wall Street talking about the top 1% as far as the country and the responsibility that they have to the country. I said, well, if you're in the top 1% of the world, what responsibility do you have for the world? It sort of shifts things around a little bit, doesn't it? I said, but, ultimately, having this perspective, I bring that spec up, and, anyone making over $25,000 or $24,000 a year is in the top 10%. Worldwide, 50% of the planet make less than $800 a year, which sounds crazy, and people can say, well, it costs a lot more to live in America. Mm-hmm. But then again, we have potable water everywhere in America.
Quality of life.
Right. You have a general quality of life. You can only fall so low, and you will still have access to water. You'll still have access to some basic services that even people that make a median income in some countries don't have. As one friend of mine put it, he's like, he's from a third world country. He said even the garbage is cleaner. But anyway, I mean, that's not to denigrate the poverty here in the United States, which is a serious issue. And I brought up that statistic, or I bring up that statistic, mainly I don't want people to feel guilty about what they have. That's not the point. Because honestly, the book is Financial Sorcery. If people want to, take baths every night in champagne, then by all means go for that as a goal. Although, you might also want to intersperse baths with water. But the point being is that, people will pray or summon a being or put an intention out there in the world, however they're working their magic, with this, I want to be wealthy. I want to be wealthy. They'll summon Tzadkiel, the Archangel of Jupiter, and say, Tzadkiel, make me a wealthy person. And, Tzadkiel's just going to look at you and be like, well, you live in the most expensive city on planet Earth. You make $250,000 a year. What do you want from me? Whereas if you're specific, and this is true not only in magic, but in your own, in your own thought process. If you're specific, if you're thinking not in terms of this airy-fairy idea of being wealthy, you don't ever have to think about money again. Yeah. If you're thinking in terms of, okay, I'm going to call upon Tzadkiel, the Archangel of Jupiter, and Tzadkiel, I've just started a business doing, say, Reiki for mixed martial artists. And I think that I can bring in an extra $40,000 a year with this business if everything goes right. Please help me make at least this so that I can double my income and improve my quality of life. Well, Tzadkiel can say, okay, that's a great idea. I can work with that. You know, you're giving somebody something specific they can do. You're setting a specific, measurable, actionable goal for both yourself and whatever powers that you may be involved with, either
right
through
there,
prayer or through magic.
But right there, you're calling upon a specific god. Is this not just the law of attraction? Just thoughts make things. You put it out there, it'll come back to you.
Well, you know, that's magic too. It all sort of falls under the same category. The thing with the law of attraction by itself, and this is something that somebody who worked on The Secret and then later went on to write a book called The Answer, John Assaraf and Murray Smith, you know, they say, well, the law of attraction is true and it works. However, there's also the law of, I forget exactly how they put it, but it was basically the law of action that, you know, when you have this goal, you need to be taking steps towards it. And then the law of fruition, I think they called it. I could be wrong on that. I haven't read the book in a while. Basically that things take time. And some of this gets lost in the message of The Secret. You know, the message of The Secret takes the sort of new thought ideas and the think and grow rich Napoleon Hill kind of idea and sort of hyperbolizes it to where you're sitting around writing checks to the universe and not doing much else. I mean, down to where there's a point in The Secret where it says, you know, if you don't believe that fatty foods will make you fat, they won't make you fat. And I beg to differ.
It's like the hot coals.
Right. Well, you know, the hot coals thing that
Tony Robbins, yeah.
Tony Robbins does.
Didn't he get in a little trouble lately with that?
You know, he did, but I like Tony Robbins a great deal. I mean, I don't know Tony Robbins. I just like his shtick a great deal. Mm-hmm. But you know, I think he's a good person putting out good stuff. And what happened was people heard the yelling of them getting psyched up to do the coals. You know? And the reality is anybody can do the coals because once the coals are sort of grayed over a little bit, they're not all that hot. So it's an old fakir's trick. Anybody can, if you walk briskly, anybody can walk over the coals. And you get heat, don't get me wrong. And some people will get little blisters and those blisters will go away. But the reports of like 3rd-degree burns were absolutely untrue. That has since been recanted and defunct. So, you know, not that Tony Robbins needs me to stand up for him, but
right.
You know.
Well, what happened is some people at a recent convention or lecture burned their feet walking over the coals.
Right, but it turned out it wasn't the disaster that the original report made it out to be.
Jason, on the front cover of the book, Financial Sorcery, Magical Secrets to Create Real and Lasting Wealth, it says Innomiandum. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, under your name. What's that?
All right, it's Innominandum, and it literally means he who cannot be named. And this is a name that I had received in a vision back in the 90s when I first started writing.
It's like Voldemort from Harry Potter. Yeah.
A little like that. Pre-Harry Potter. Pre-Harry Potter. But you know, I started writing under that name, and I started publishing articles under that name, and it was a way to do it anonymously until finally I did start writing under my real name when I had my first book. And then once I had that book, it was a way for people to actually find me, since there are 2 Jason Millers that are more famous than I am. So this was Innominandum was just sort of this name that I had been using before I really thought hard about marketing. And so, you know, it's there now, and it's a good way for people to Google me, but a better way for people to find me is to Google the word Strategic Sorcery, and they'll come across me pretty quickly.
Are acts of goodness or acts of positivity more effective than negative actions?
Well, it depends on the situation. First of all, if you have the option of solving something with an act of negativity or an act of positivity, always go for the positive. Always go for the positive. It'll get you further. And, you know, we sort of magical types tend to think that you get surrounded by the types of spirits and the types of powers that you deal with regularly. So if you're one of these people that, you know, thinks only in terms of solving things by causing other people grief or misery, then, you know, you tend to be surrounded by those types of spirits. Take the example of a promotion. I once did a ritual to get promoted. There were several other people up for this job, and I did a ritual to get promoted, and it was purely a ritual aimed around my boss giving it to me, recognizing the quality of my work, and also me doing a lot of extra work to make sure on the mundane level that I, you know, was doing what the magic would point out that I would be doing, which was giving 110% to the job. Now, in a case like that, that's pretty positive, right? It's selfish,
okay.
But, you know, do you want the promotion or not? You know, you're in business.
Yep.
You know, if you don't want it, you know, if you're going to be that altruistic, then, you know, you're going to have problems in the world. Now, there are other people that I know whose first thought in getting ahead in a situation like that would be to jinx the competitors rather than bolster their own work. They would be thinking in terms of how to make the other people look bad. And that's not my style, and that's not, I think, the style that works best long term, and it's not the kind of energy that you want to be surrounded with as a person. It's not the kind of spirits, for lack of a better word, that yield abundance on the long term. So that's not me, but that is how some people unfortunately think about it.
If you were PepsiCo, could you hire a room full of sorcerers to jinx Coca-Cola?
If I was the CEO of Pepsi, no. No, I wouldn't. I would propose making my soda a little bit less sweet.
That is the problem with Pepsi, isn't it? Yeah.
It is the problem with Pepsi. But I would propose not changing the logo every 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's another new marketing
because that's
team.
the other thing. You know, Coke has had the same logo for decades, and Pepsi just seems to change their can every 30 seconds.
They're the drink of the new generation or whatever. Right?
Yes, the new generation.
Yeah, they keep having it.
Which, you know, the story was that in Japan that translated to Pepsi will bring your ancestors back from the dead.
Excellent.
So it was not that great of a marketing campaign there. Now, that said, I can tell you that, you know, magic does get used at corporate levels like that. There are, you know, I have been called upon, not to jinx anyone, but I have been called upon to go to professional offices of a major company, and it's usually the manager of a department or something like that will want a space cleansed or exercised or something like that. In other countries, you know, America is sort of a very Protestant country, and Western Europe it tends to be very Protestant. But in Catholic countries, in Hindu countries, in Buddhist countries, in Taoist countries, and so on, magic is much more of a given. And even in Iceland, there are people who get hired by companies that are putting up new buildings to make sure that they're not like displacing elves. I kid you not. Some towns have even laws about it, that you have to, make sure that, you hire the local shaman to make sure you're not displacing elves when you build your building. Or, a lot of people in China, when opening buildings, hire feng shui practitioners. Feng shui is essentially magic. There's nothing fundamentally different about that than anything a witch or a sorcerer does.
Do you know of any country that has made magic illegal?
Well, yeah, I mean there are some, I'm sure, that have witchcraft laws on the books, and there are even towns in the United States that have laws against fortune telling and things like that. And England has its Fraudulent Mediums Act that occasionally gets used to prosecute people that can't absolutely prove what they're doing, which, of course, when you're dealing with spells that invariably manifest as coincidence, it's very difficult to prove anything as far as magic goes. But then, of course, we have that issue again where the magic that I do is good because it's my religion and I don't call it magic, and the magic that the witch, person does that wears the pentagram is bad because that's not my religion. So all throughout Asia and Africa and South America, you hear these stories of witches being routed out and punished and sometimes killed, usually by shaman who decide that someone is a witch and has been, casting spells. It's usually some hapless woman that, they got angry at or something like that. It has nothing to do with real witchcraft. But, to whatever extent that it's state or tribally sponsored, it does happen.
You've devoted a big part of your book to symbology, and this is probably what's going to make people buy the book more so than anything, because there are certain things that you can do, symbols, you can draw these.
Well, I think you're referring to the lightning glyphs.
The glyphs, yes, the invocation to Jupiter that's on the cover and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
so,
amazing.
there's a chapter where I talk about different powers that different people pray to and invoke all throughout the world for financial reasons. There's a listing of saints, there's a listing of Hindu gods, there's a listing of pagan gods, there's a listing of angels, and so on, and how to use different planets. But the book is dedicated to Jupiter, to the Roman god Jupiter and the planet Jupiter, as the force of abundance and increase par excellence. So as I was writing the book, I was also doing daily invocations of Jupiter. And I would receive these sort of inspirations, sometimes direct messages, sometimes dreams, sometimes voices. And they would show me things like the invocation, or there's a thing in there about 4 virtue goddesses that are there to assist the practitioner. But at one point, Jupiter had said, I want to show you something, but you're going to need to call your friend Matt Brownlee because you can't draw. And my friend Matt is a tattoo artist and also a sorcerer who I've worked with for years. I've known him for years. We used to live together back in the day. And he came over and we invoked Jupiter, and we started to, we just said, okay, Jupiter, hail Jove, show me what you got. And we would start to see these symbols, and he would very quickly zip the sigil down, the symbol down, or the glyph down, and I would know what it's for instantly. Or vice versa. I would get a feeling like, I'm feeling the symbol is for reversal of bad luck. And he would just instantly whip this symbol off. And, usually when we're working on some kind of an art project together, it takes days and to get things right. All 16 of those glyphs came within an hour. So that whole
incredible.
working was done in an hour. Very quickly, lightning-like. And I started to give some of the glyphs out to people that I knew were interested in sorcery and financial work as I was writing the book. So by the time the book went to press, a significant amount of people had used those glyphs successfully to bolster their business operations or help them, with debt problems or whatever it is that they were doing.
Well, this show's coming from Vancouver, Canada, and the Olympics have come and gone. Expos, 25 years ago. This city's running out of tricks, and we're running out of jobs. Honestly, this economy here is extremely stagnant. And this book is not just to make someone rich. I don't even think that's the idea at all. Even just finding a job.
Well, the magic in the book is not overly complex. I did not set out to write something that would be, technically difficult for people to do. Quite the opposite. And, some people have even noted that, even if you don't practice magic, the book's underlying philosophy is good as well. And there were some people at my lecture last night that were just, regular old Catholics. And I had just pointed out, doing a novena is essentially a spell. But if you do a novena and do it according to the rules and principles laid down in financial sorcery, it'll be much more effective because you're using it for the right things. You're not praying to win the lottery. You're not praying to just be wealthy in this sort of amorphous kind of way. You're dealing with your life, and of course, just like the guy on the airplane, it says, put your mask on before securing the mask around your child. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's something that's difficult for people to deal with sometimes. In any sense of danger, I think any parent would immediately think to take care of their child before they take care of themselves. And people that are community-minded are think in terms of sacrifice for the community. But that's not always the best thing. So in terms of a city or a town or a country that is in financial straits, and let's face it, there are very few places that aren't right now. It takes people, first and foremost, getting their own house in order, and then setting forward, creating, I hate to use the phrase that Republicans in my country have been using, to become job creators. I don't know if you've heard the job creator argument. We can't tax people, that are affluent because they're the job creators.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The flaw in the argument is that jobs aren't created because you or I have extra money. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I come across an extra $500,000 in the bank account, I don't just sit around and go, honey, what we should do? Just create some jobs. Let's go out and open a lemonade stand willy-nilly. Give some of the hoi polloi some jobs. That's not how it works. Right. Jobs are created by work needing to be done. And work needing to be done can only occur when normal, everyday people have money. If I have a yard that's in disrepair, if I have a little bit of money, a little bit of extra money after the bills, I'll hire people to re-landscape my yard. If I don't have a little extra money, I'm not going to hire people because the yard can wait another year. So that's the kind of thing that needs to occur. So people en masse need to get their financial houses in order. By all means, voting is important, and vote for the people that you think will get that house in order. But more than that, you take care of yourself, take care of your family, then take care of your neighbors and your your extended family. And this is that idea of a circle of mercy, that you want to help the world, but you can't help everyone all the time and have nothing left. So you help the people that present themselves to you. And you do what you can to make a better world. And I think that financial sorcery can definitely be put to those ends. You take the example of one example I gave in the book on the passive income chapter is a fire chief that I know. And I met him because I was doing some work about his retirement, his beach house. And I said, wow, there's a really nice beach house for a fireman's salary. And he had said, well, I'm not just a fireman. I own a chain of bagel shops. And, it's important to make the distinction. He owns the bagel shops. He doesn't work at the bagel shop. He reports to the bagel shops once a week. He probably spends Tim Ferriss's ubiquitous 4 hours a week managing the bagel shops. Other than that, he leaves it to his managers. And with that, he's able to afford a nice retirement. He's able to provide jobs to the places where, his bagel shops are. And that's really how a community turns around.
If I found $500,000, the first thing I would do is hire a private nurse to keep me alive, because I'm going to go on one hell of a bender. How do you remove unconscious thought patterns that block out the money flow in people's lives?
Good question.
Agreed.
And I have a whole chapter on it called How to Move the Set Point. And most of those unconscious thought patterns revolve around what has been called the set point. And the set point is a term that comes out of weight loss theory. And the theory is that everyone has actually in weight loss terms, it's a physiological set point where the body and the mind recognize a certain weight that it's comfortable at. And although you would like to be thinner, your body is going to naturally gravitate towards this set point weight. It might not be the most healthy weight for you, but that's its set point. But you can move that set point. Now, psychologically, we all have set points for just about everything. Have you ever heard the guy who says, oh, she's way out of my league. I could never ask her out. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, she's sitting across from him on the train going, why doesn't this guy ask me out? He clearly is looking at me up and down every day. It's the set point. It's that place where this is what we think we might want, but it's outside of our comfort zone. Now, financially speaking, we can see this really easily when people fall below their set point. If you're raised sort of middle class or lower middle class in America, your set point is probably $40,000, $50,000 a year. It's enough to afford a house, a car, put food on the table. Not much else. Probably both people are going to have to work. And it's the sort of state of middle America these days. And when people lose a job, when people experience a medical problem, because Lord knows in America, we one medical problem and your financial life can be destroyed here. When we experience that, our set point is threatened, and you will see people scurry and work their butt off to get back to that place that they were comfortable, to get back to that $40,000 or $50,000 a year. And it'll happen because their whole being, all their thought process is centered around that comfort zone. And when your whole being, when your whole mind is set towards a goal, that goal will occur. The universe bends over backwards to help you. That's how magic works, essentially. The problem is, most of the people that are making $40,000 or $50,000 a year would like to be making 2 or 3 times that, or more, right? But that's outside their comfort zone. That's what those elitist people up the hill make. You know, the people that are the sons and daughters of doctors, lawyers, and bankers, who all become doctors, lawyers, and bankers themselves.
And that's not a good idea, right? That you're creating that division. So how could you ever become that person if you're dividing yourself?
Exactly. So there are ways, and that's where all these thought processes that our Dutch friend is referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways to conquer this, to reset your set point. And the basic method, I mean, I give a very specific step-by-step way to do it in the set point chapter. But the essential point of it is that you want to, first of all, release yourself from your main, from where you are. So you want to banish it. You know, you want to banish this idea that you are this person, that this is your lot in life, etc., etc. And this happens on a number of ways. I mean, there's the ritual banishing of it, where you literally send it away. Magicians do this, you know, as sort of the same way that a ritual excommunication would be done in church, or something like that. But you can also do it, people that are involved in hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming will create an image, and they'll send that image further and further away in the mind so that it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they'll, you know, create the image of where they want their set point to be, and they'll make that bigger and bigger and bigger so that it shifts in their mind. And they do this day in and day out. Now, obviously, I think that, you know, any method that you use, having magic as part of that method boosts its power, boosts its effectiveness. Some people who are not magically inclined will disagree, and that's fine. But, you know, you want to release yourself from that set point. Then you want to do everything you can to move that set point. So one of the key things is the people that you surround yourself with. You know, so much of it, of what we say and do, is really mechanistic. Thoughts don't generally come from this golden kernel of self. They're learned patterns and reactions and so on and so forth. I hate to paint a picture of us as being machine-like, but that is unfortunately an accurate picture of how most of our minds work. The good thing is, if we can acknowledge that it's machine-like, we can hack the machine. So you take a look at the people around you that reinforce your old set point. And I'm not saying, you know, cut people that have been your friends for your whole life, but at least get some new friends that, you know, value money, that know what to do with it, that are the type of person that you want to be. And if you have friends that are threatened by you gaining money, and you'll be amazed at any change you make, friends of yours will be threatened. You know, when you've got friends that are attractive and they're used to you being sort of the fat guy in the room, and you lose 50 pounds, those friends can get nasty real quick, and you need to drop them. You know, or talk to them and do whatever you need to, but you don't. You know, you can't let people sabotage your efforts. And it's the same thing with money. If you're surrounded by people that, you know, well, I'm the son of a miner and my father was the son of a miner and I'm going to live and die in this mining town, and, you know, you want to go off to some elitist university where, you know, what the heck is wrong with you? Well, I hate to say it, but that guy's not really your friend.
Mm-hmm. I think that was
and it happens all the time.
Yeah, it's very
all the time. So that's part of moving that set point. Then there's I give a ritual resetting of the set point, but ultimately, your first success moves that set point. Graduating from a degree or certification program and getting a better job sets that set point. Starting a new business online and having your first sale resets that set point. You're a businessman now. Selling your first song, you're a professional musician now. You're a professional artist now. Whatever it is, your world has now changed. That puts a seal on your work. Your set point is now going to be completely different than it was when you started. And that's really how you do it. Sort of a long answer to a short question, but
no, it was
a good question.
The website, Jason?
My website is Innominandum.com. That is INOMINANDUM.com. Or you can Google Strategic Sorcery and you'll find me without any problems.
The book is Financial Sorcery, Magical Strategies to Create Real and Lasting Wealth by Jason Miller, today's guest. You can find the book at the bottom of www.westcoasttruth.com. Click on the image and it'll take you over to Amazon and you can buy it there. Jason, thank you very much for being on the program today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.